there were certain players where it seemed like they'd look at Hojlund and be a bit like hesitant to feed him because they don't.
It's more than rumours.
Yeah, because that's 100% a thing when you play football.
He had a word with the coaching staff last season, and he was concerned. Delap is a very interesting option because it's maybe not a kind of sexy option, but you've got a proven Premier League striker there.
Jay here, Stretford Paddock. This is Off the Bar. Joining me is Mr. Ronaldo Brown. How are we doing, Ronnie?
I'm doing great. How are you, Jay?
Yeah.
I feel like I can never ask you back.
Have you been on Off the Bar before? You're a regular on the Paddock podcast. That's where you're on every week, and rightly so. I don't.
Maybe a couple times, maybe.
Do you know what we need to do? We need to bring back the Tier 1 podcast.
Tier 1.
Yeah.
That was us.
That was it?
That was good times. That
we could pretend we're bringing it back today anyway, because we've got Chris Wheeler from the Daily Mail joining us as well. Chris, how are we doing?
All good. Yeah. How are you?
I'm all right, man. Are you enjoying the sun?
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? Spring's here, you know.
Do you know what I mean?
It's good, bad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about time we had a bit of decent weather. Yeah. There's loads of stories to talk about. We're going to talk through your stories. You've been covering Manchester United, as always, this season, and getting into some stories that we've been covering on the channel as well. I don't want to make us all depressed straight away, but I do want to talk quickly and briefly about the Nottingham Forest game, because we sort of called it, didn't we? We were talking about it, and we said, Elanga will end up doing something. He'll end up scoring, or he'll end up creating something.
Not from 90 yards.
Yeah, we didn't expect it to be after 4 minutes from where he did it from.
Steve was like a star man before the game. In his preview, saying he's going to be a problem.
We had Damani Mellor and Ryan Hopper on, and they were like, Elanga's going to be the one, right? And then 5 minutes in, or whatever it was, 4 minutes in, he does. Yeah. But then we all saw it. The narrative starts, doesn't it? Should we let him go? What happens? Why do players keep leaving Manchester United and getting better? You obviously covered this and you spoke about it in your piece. What do you think there is? Do you think there is an issue there with Manchester United players when some of them struggle and they go on, or do you think it's just because certain players aren't quite good enough for Manchester United? The expectation is more, or players leave when they're young and get better. How do you look at that?
It's a bit of a bit of a rock and hard place, isn't it? Because if you keep them, you get a lot of grief for like stockpiling talent and not using it and just keeping it there, and then you get a huge squad. If you let them go and they do well, at the drop of a hat, suddenly it's like, oh, what do you obviously that you've like messed up there, haven't you? Yeah, I don't really buy into that. I think we're just, like I said before, weren't we? That I think in his time at the club, he scored, four goals, 4 assists in 55 games. So it wasn't like he was tearing it up, and I think in the summer that he went to Forest, at the start of that season, I think we had Ronaldo, Sancho, Rashford, Anthony, Pellistri, there's a couple more in there too, wide players. There was an awful lot of wide players. He wasn't going to play much football anyway. And he's gone on, they've got 15 million quid for him, £5 million in options, or add-ons, sorry. And he's gone on and done well with his career. That doesn't mean that Man United have messed up. It doesn't automatically mean what was going to happen. I mean, he's unbelievably quick. He's a good footballer, international for Sweden. He was always a decent player, and he's proven that at Forest. But was he a Man United player? Probably not. And that doesn't change on the back of one goal. A fantastic goal, by the way.
Yeah.
But that doesn't change on the back of one goal. And if you look through, Jay, the history of football, of the Premier League, Man United players are littered around the top divisions. At every single level, you see ex-Man United players who came through the system. Good players, some made it, some didn't. And just because, some that didn't then go on and have a career and do well, if you talk to the people at the club, if you talk to Nick Cox and you talk to the people around the whole youth system, that's a source of pride for them, not a source of shame or embarrassment. If you speak to them, they would say, we nurture players here to have a career, not necessarily at Man United. We're giving them a career full stop. They care about these boys, and surely the club would get a lot more flack if they use and abuse them. If they brought them through, and then if they didn't make it at Man United, that was it, off you go. They actually care about them to the point that they go away, like him, and they have a career somewhere else.
Yeah, what do you make of it all, Ronnie? Because we saw it coming, didn't we? We say this is what's going to happen, and we've sort of seen it in glimpses where Elanga does something well. We've seen it a few times last season. McTominay, everyone's going on about McTominay. I was talking about him earlier on today in my news, and I think he's done an interview with Rory Smith where he was talking about how he felt a little bit misused in his positions at United at times. But there is always this narrative in it, and we saw it with Elanga. But do you agree with Chris that sometimes it's just like players are looked after at United and then they move on because they're not quite at that level? Or do you think United have made some missteps along the way as well?
Yeah, and there's also been obviously a lot of talk about how Nottingham Forest and their brand of football and how it's primarily the whole season it's been a counter-attacking style of football, which does suit his skill set, which is pace and having space to run into and using his athleticism. Does he get that same opportunity to kind of use that against stiffer defences and low blocks playing for a top team? Maybe not. It's just sometimes there's things that go hand in hand that's obviously benefited him. He has improved. It's been a couple of years, but as Chris has said, I still necessarily don't believe he was United quality when he was here. Maybe now because there's been mismanagement in the market and we've probably got a few forwards and wingers that aren't firing. It's easy to look at it and be like, maybe we should have kept him. But obviously hindsight is always 2020. For me, I'm happy for him. Obviously, a lot of things I did see in the summer. I'm not. Don't quote me on this, but did Newcastle come in for like a 40-50 million bid for Elanga last summer?
I think it was either last summer or one of the transfer windows, but they definitely were in for him. They went in for him around 45-50 million. Producer Ethan is a Newcastle fan. We were chatting to him about it. It's like he's highly regarded, and there's a player there, like you just said. No one ever looked at Elanga and thought he's a terrible footballer. I just thought I don't think as a youth player you're not going to make it at a club of that stature if you haven't got some sort of qualities or something about you. So he obviously did, and he's gone and he's continued to improve. One thing that was always said about him is he was really professional. He had a lot of work rate. He was really good intangibles. And he's obviously bettering himself and he's becoming international. He's scoring goals for Forest. But I don't think we have to look at it thinking upset and we should have kept him. I think it was the right decision at the time to let him go. Maybe the one thing that you could be upset about as a United fan is probably could we have got a little bit more money for him. Yeah. But other than that, I think you just got to be like, fair play, he's doing well in that system that suits him. But United, I think we can't just kind of like be upset and just.
Everything's boom or bust, isn't it? Everything is like it's success or failure. There's no kind of reason in the middle of. Well, you know what? He was done. He was the young player of the year. He obviously was rated. Yeah. They did rate him and they backed him and they had a chance. He played 55 games.
I mean, under
Rangnick liked him,
didn't he? Exactly. Ralph Rangnick, and I think actually at the time, I know there's lots of questions about what was happening with Marcus Rashford at the time, whatever, but you could see games where it looked like Andy Elanga could actually do the breather, but he was still getting played, and that was part of the issue. I don't think we used him in the best way. You made a good point in your article. You said the issue is not with the players United move out, but the ones they bring in. That seems to be a big problem.
That's where you can say. There's very few players, and I'm trying to think now on the hoof, very few players that have been let go over the years that you think, really messed up there. There's not that many. You look at Anthony now, did very well at the start at Betis, but that sort of leveled off a little bit. Martial, McTominay, of course, doing very well. That was a shame. But I think even the club knew when they sold him that there was a reason behind it. It was all about money. They preferred to have kept him. Back to your point, I mean, I don't think it's the players that go out. The problems of players that come in, and that's where I think the fans and other people have got a real problem, and it has been poor. It's been really poor.
And Ruben Amorim, you mentioned it in your piece as well. He's a manager who's always seems to carry himself well in the press conferences. Seems quite happy and jovial and confident, and even he looks a bit.
Monday he was downbeat with it. He came in. He kind of almost sprang into life. He came in speaking to us, full of the joys, and 24 hours later he saw he was kind of there at Forest, and a very different colour to him, very different look on his face, and he just, he looked like a guy who was like, here we go again, because obviously we went into the international break, beat Sociedad, beat Leicester, not the best teams, but things felt good. It felt like we were, building, and I think, to be fair, the Forest game, they performed pretty well. I think they performed pretty well to a point. They couldn't put the ball into the net, and that was a problem. But Amorim, there was a big change between Monday afternoon and Tuesday evening. Yeah.
I'd be gutted if we did to Ruben Amorim what we've done to all the other managers. They all come in. Even Jose came in full of beans, didn't he? And was happy. And then by the end, he looked like he just
do a before and after for these managers. It's
Ollie,
actually
Oh no!
He looked like a ghost.
It was heartbreaking, wasn't it?
Like a ghost.
Yeah. Even Moyes, he was only there for about 8 months. Even he looked like he just aged 10 years overnight.
Yeah.
It's what happens to Manchester United managers, unfortunately. Hopefully, Ruben Amorim will break that.
It looks like money can't buy you happiness, innit? Because a lot of these managers that come here, it's on a decent pay packet, but they still look worse for wear by the end of it.
As well with your reputation, because Ruben Amorim, I'm not saying that his reputation's ruined, of course, and I still think he'll have success, but he couldn't have been flying much higher than he was when he was unbeaten. He just beating Manchester City in the Champions League, Sporting absolutely flying, and you come at United and all these records.
There must have been times that he looks at this and thinks,
Yeah, and nothing can prepare you really, can it?
No, he was happy in Portugal, wasn't he?
I think every manager looks at the United job, knows how hard it is, but they have that inner ego about them, thinking I can be the one.
I can be the one.
Yes.
I can be the kind of Ferguson, or I can be the Klopp. I can be the next Messiah.
You've got to back yourself as well, haven't you, a little bit? Because you're thinking, like, what is the point of being a manager if you don't think you're good enough to manage it? And some of these managers as well, like, Moyes has been at for 10 years. He probably thought, okay, now's the time or whatever, I should be ready for this. Van Gaal managed Barcelona and Bayern Munich. Ollie, obviously, club legend. Jose's Jose. So I get it. It's just, it's sad to see. Talking about players that we've brought in that haven't had success, you did an article about Liam Delap, who scored a good goal last night, didn't he, against Bournemouth?
That was a good goal.
He's at 11th in the Premier League for him this season.
Yes, it is. All in the league. I mean, the same before. The goal actually lifts. If you see him, he hits it so hard. The goal actually lifts off the back of it. It's amazing.
Mate. Yeah.
Fantastic shot.
It does feel like there's something happening there. You said about United sort of stepping up their efforts. What's the latest on that? How close do you think they are to prioritising signing Liam Delap?
As we just said, Tuesday proved one thing. They are desperate for a centre forward, and they're crying out for someone to put the ball in the back of the net. And so you've seen a number of options coming through. You've seen obviously him. You've got Gyökeres, you've got Osimhen, possibly there's been talk of a swap deal with Garnacho. There's a lot of options coming out there, different prices, what can they afford this summer? And I think particularly what you get with Delap is you've got a proven Premier League striker. And as you say, all of his goals this season in a really, really poor team have come in the league. He is a proven Premier League striker, and that's, I think, what we've lacked, what we've maybe overlooked a little bit with Hojlund, with Cherki, with players in the past. That's why, going back to an old bugbear of mine, is why we should have gone for Kane. I think Kane was an absolute, shoe-in. If you can get him, you know what you're going to get with Harry Kane. He was a Premier League, great, and the money was a problem, a load of issues, I get that, but I think we should have gone a little bit harder for Harry Kane. It didn't happen. Here we are again. We've gone through a couple of options. It hasn't really worked out, Hojlund, Cherki yet. We do need someone in, and Delap is a very interesting option because it's maybe not a kind of sexy option, but you've got a proven Premier League striker there. Other clubs are going to want him. And of course, City do have a kind of buyback for him too, so that's an issue, which is, that's a problem.
With the Harry Kane one though, are we 100% sure Daniel Levy would have sold him?
No.
Was that the issue? No. Was that what United looked at?
There was two main issues. Harry Kane wanted Man United. Man United wanted Harry Kane. Eric definitely wanted him. No question about it, 100%. The problem was the money, 100 million plus, and the wages, I'm told, were off the scale, like properly off the scale.
Yeah.
And the fear at Man United was that Levy wouldn't sell to a Premier League rival. Yeah. And worse than that, he would string them along to the end of the window and then pull the plug on it and leave them hanging. They leave them high and dry.
Yeah.
And that was a real fear within the club, that when you deal with him, you've got a problem, a big problem.
Because they've had difficulties with Levy. Was it Berbatov was Levy? Was that the...
Berbatov was Levy,
he tried to do, I think that...
Well, that was when he went to City as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was trying to sort of last minute trying to make City...
Yeah.
Because City just like almost overnight had all this money to spend. And I remember when it was like coming through that City had put like 11th hour bidding for him. Apparently there was some shenanigans going on there, and like you said, United didn't want to be left without a striker. I kind of understand it, but it's annoying to me because you just think a club like United, Harry Kane's the kind of player we should be going for. I'm not trying to dismiss Rasmus Hojlund, but that would have been such a big signing, and I just think it changes the entire team.
It does.
Like when you got like players not perhaps passing to Hojlund when they should. And I think Harry Kane, it's a bit of a different story there.
Yeah, there is. You look to find it. Whereas
you're not looking up thinking, I'm not giving it in.
I can't believe when I heard those rumours, because that's all of the Rafa now, that there were certain players where it seemed like they'd look at Hojlund and be a bit like
Reluctant.
hesitant to feed him because he's not. They don't.
It's more than rumours.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah. You know what? The journalists we speak to don't always agree on things, but that's one thing where I keep it. I get that reaction, like,
because that's 100% a thing when you play football.
He had a word with the coaching staff last season, and he was concerned. There was a fallout with Dalot. Was it in Copenhagen or Istanbul? I can't remember which now. When we gave a Champions League goal away, and you saw it, of course, surface again recently when he and Dalot fell out over the pass that didn't happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's been rumbling for quite a while. The whole, players passing to Hojlund or not passing to Hojlund.
It's 100% a thing when you're playing football. 100% is where there will be. It might even be a bit subconscious. There's just certain players you feel like you don't trust as much.
Yeah.
With someone like, or you've got relationships with on the pitch. I think they might not believe if they pass it to him, is he going to secure it? Is he going to control it? Can I get it back? Yeah. If I give him this opportunity, will he score? I know you shouldn't be thinking like that, but there is a bit of that. I feel like if Harry Kane's up front, first instinct of midfielders and wingers is going to be, can I find him? I trust him. He can win us the game. With Hojlund, there might be a bit of, they look up, they see him, he's asking for the ball to feet, and they're like, is he going to be able to keep it for us? I'm not sure.
Even
do you know what I mean? Yeah.
You're right, I've seen it. And you know what as well? The thing that worries me about the whole Hojlund situation, and you'll notice this, Chris, when you're covering it, is if you look at, because I don't know if the cameras always pick up on it, you look at his reactions, you look at the way he talks to some of his teammates, and I'm not having to dig at him because I understand his frustrations, but it's not just a player going, there's times when he's actually raging. He's kind of his boot in the post and he's screaming at Garnacho is the main culprit that seems to get. And what makes me laugh about Garnacho is Hojlund will scream at him and rant and rage, and Garnacho acts like nothing is being said to him. He don't look up, don't look at him, doesn't acknowledge it. He just there was one the other week as well where Hojlund shouted at him, then your guy and Bruno ran over to him and started having a go at him, and he just carried on walking like no one was talking to him, which I thought was kind of funny, but also, slightly depressing.
So the thing with Kane, by the way, it's just come back to me, was the resale value. Their feeling was because of his age, there was no resale value. So it was a 100 million plus deal, no resale value. But the other argument is, but if you're signing or paying over the odds for Hojlund at 72, Xerxes, 36 isn't too bad, but still, their resale value isn't brilliant because their values come down anyway. If you're talking about Anthony, he's quite a young player, but his resale value's plummeted because you paid whatever, 86 million for him. What's he going to go for now? 25? So age isn't the only factor in a player's resale value.
I always think. Sorry, go on, Ronnie. Go on.
Because this is a question to Chris, like circling towards Liam Delap as well. Is obviously we're talking about this age thing, which is the way a lot of clubs are now addressing the market, where they want that resale value, they want that potential to get there in early where they can grow as a player. But a lot of United fans are looking at thinking, now we've bought Xerxes when Xerxes was about 23, 22, I believe, around that age anyway. Hojlund even younger. That the Liam Delap links, a lot of them are scoffing at it, thinking it's just another young player. Where is he guaranteed to be a star? Because they're looking at the likes of Osimhen and people that have been doing it for a few more years.
I've been guilty of that, to be fair.
So the Liam Delap links, as much as I think is a great, I actually rate him really highly.
You've always rated him.
I've always rated him.
We did that. I think me and you did the Ipswich watch along. Amarin's first game, and you were. I'm pretty sure it was that game. I think he's better than Hojlund, and I think he's much further ahead in his development than Hojlund as well. And I said that before they played us the first time. Because I think he just came of age. Was it Hull that he was on loan at when he played well? But I wouldn't mind the signing at all. But people are looking at it thinking 40 million for another young player that they're not guaranteed to be this 20 goal a season person because they've maybe not done it yet at this level, even though he's looked like he could do. Yeah. So what?
I think there's a lot of snobbery because we're Man United and because we pay up here, not down here. Times are changing. The money's not there anymore. And anyone that hasn't realised that,
look at the league tables.
Anyone that hasn't realised that needs to wake up. And things are changing, and they're not going the Ed Woodward route of we pay top dollar to bring Pogba back, haven't let him go for pretty much nothing. Now we are looking for value, and so I can understand. He's ex-City. He left there, went to Ipswich and Hull, like you say. 40 million quid. He's not he's not a blockbuster signing.
No.
He's not a sexy signing. But as I said, times are changing, and they can't afford to do that. And the big thing for me, as I say, he's a proven Premier League goal scorer. And back to Kane again, you're paying huge money for him, but as Jay says, he's transformative. He's a transformative player. He transforms your team and your club. And yes, you're kind of writing off 100 million quid, but how many Hojlunds and Xerxes and Antonys are you going to sign that you're writing off that money anyway?
Yes.
So it's almost to me like if you're running a football club at that level, you're going to be spending £100 million anyway. I'd rather do it on Harry Kane than Antony, Xerxes and Hojlund.
Yeah, it's annoying that, because I get that United don't want to spend massive money on players, but there's certain players that if they come along, you get that opportunity to get them. Go all
Van
out.
Dijk,
Yeah.
Van Dijk, 75 million quid, go for it.
Yeah, it makes such a difference. And you look at now the way United are struggling, watching United, such hard work at times this season. You just think, Harry Kane's still going. There's a good chance Harry Kane's got another 2, maybe even 3 seasons in him, the way he's looked after himself. He might do Lewandowski.
That was the argument, though.
Right,
Harry Kane wasn't a player that relied on like speed and pace and athleticism.
Exactly.
So I don't know. I thought at the age he was at, I thought would have been good value, because I think Harry Kane will still be scoring goals at 34, 35.
Imagine
Maybe not the same clip.
Imagine you
But
got 4 or 5 seasons out of him for 100 million quid.
Yeah.
25 million quid a season. I know you got to pay wages on top of that. It's worth it. Who cares if you don't get any money for him when you sell him?
If you apply the same argument to like Teddy Sheringham, same story, coming out of Spurs. Coming out of Spurs, hadn't won anything.
30 odd, I think he was, wasn't he, at the time?
And what we paid, £5 million paid for him.
Was.
We got £5 million back at the far end too. But I mean, he was a fantastic player for us.
He was, and he was mad with Sheringham as well, because that first season he was a bit up and down, and people were like,
Yeah.
Then the second season, throughout the season, 99, he wasn't playing as much. Then obviously scores in the 2 finals, and then I think with the PFA Player of the Year not long after that, the next season, and 20 goals, and it's like he just sort of went from being mint to even better at the age of like 34 whatever, and it was just like, what is going on here? So it's just annoying, because I always think like when a player like that, United should be in for him. Who else are United looking at then? Obviously Delap.
Ekitike, as we mentioned as well, Eintracht Frankfurt. Osimhen, again, big money, but he's obviously out on loan from Napoli right now, so things aren't great for him there. Napoli being linked with Garnacho, is the possible swap deal there. They'll be looking at a number of options, and each one comes with its own, its own details and background and its own price tag, and they'll be looking at all of them, and there'll be other clubs too, of course. So it isn't just a case of who do Man United want. They're going to have to, fight off competition as well.
So would United entertain? Would United really entertain a Garnacho swap deal? Because I'm not sure how it exactly works, but would United get any type of PSR benefit from basically doing a swap with an academy graduate rather than selling him outright?
If not, they would make sure they did by doing two different deals, so not doing a swap. There was never, the only thing in terms of swapping that I've ever, a proper swap, I'm thinking back to Mkhitaryan.
I was going to say Sanchez, Mkhitaryan was a swap.
But even that was it was 35 million, wasn't it? So Sanchez came to us and Mkhitaryan was valued at 35 million, went to Arsenal.
Right.
But swap deals, I don't think really exist much these days, but what you'll do is we'll sell you Garnacho and you sell to Osimhen and we'll work the price out, sort of thing.
It's a good point, that, because we always talk about swap deals on the channel, and yet they're not common, are they?
If you talk to people in the industry, they say it's almost impossible because the players' personal terms and signing on fees and the payoffs in their old clubs, it's very difficult to marry up two deals. Right. So it can get portrayed as being a player swap deal plus cash or whatever else, but it actually isn't really.
Right.
It's just too complicated.
It's not like the American sport trades.
You can't trade people. No, you can't trade Garnacho for the draft pick next year.
It would kind of make sense though if we were to go down that route. I'm not saying we would, but if we sold Garnacho for 45, 50 million and then got Osimhen for that, would that be a good deal? Do you think? I'm probably in the minority at the minute, especially after his performance at the City Ground. But I don't want us to sell Alejandro Garnacho. I don't.
I think I would only be. I'm one of his. Do you know what I come across as one of his biggest critics, right? Yeah. And people would say it, but
you don't. For starters, right? You don't come across as. His biggest critics, especially online, are people that are absolutely trolling him constantly.
I do it. I do it as a counterbalance. So I feel like people have became a little bit too ahead of themselves and a bit too waxy lyrical over Garnacho and his potential and Cristiano Ronaldo, etc. I never quite saw it as that. I still thought he was a player that was capable of becoming this 15, maybe 20 goal a season winger, because he's got those instincts. He's got great in behind movement. One thing that people don't talk about Garnacho as well, but he's got a big engine as well.
Yeah.
Like he minute 1 to minute 90, he's still running at the same intensity, and he's got a lot to like about his game, especially from the intangible aspect of it. I think he's got a lot to polish in terms of his game on the ball and his decisions and stuff. But I don't think he's a bad player.
No.
And I don't necessarily think United should be selling him for too cheap. No. But I think for a really, really good offer, I think United would be silly to turn it down, because I see him as a potential really good talent who could potentially be like someone, if United are good again, challenging, he's a strong bench option maybe, or someone that can like occasionally start. But what I don't see is this like a potential world class talent. I don't exactly see that, and that's what people are saying. I've said with the CR7 stuff and the chance. So what I've done is, I think the way I judge him is I kind of like try and balance the argument out for that, but people see that as me being his biggest critic.
I mean,
do you know what I mean?
The CR7 thing, you got to remember that you are talking about one of the greatest players of all time.
Yeah.
And it's a horrible comparison, I know, because he obviously they played together and he mimics his celebration and there's all this sort of theory, but it is a little bit harsh. I wanted to ask you one final.
I was going to say that we began this chat talking about the whole kind of Elanga thing and do we regret the fact he went. I'd have far more worries that Garnacho would come back and bite us in the backside than someone else. Someone, any other of the young players. I think he has the potential to be a fantastic player, and if we let him go, I think, I would be worried that we would regret that badly in years to come. And the other thing is that you get whatever, £50 million for him, £70 million for him. So I don't trust the club to spend that money wisely.
That's a good point.
I've had
that worry for years.
I'd rather keep him and do 40 on someone like Delap than go all out and sell Garnacho or swap him. And I don't trust them to bring in anybody of like decent quality.
Well, I think the evidence backs up your doubts there, to be honest with you, considering some of the deals United have done over the last few years in particular. Just on the Delap one quickly before we move on. Is there anything in the Jason Wilcox and the relationship there that he knows him from City, and do you think that could be an advantage maybe with United, or sort of just a reason that they're pushing so hard because this is a player, look, I've worked with him, I know him, he can do a job here?
Anything helps, anything like that helps. Obviously the week before that we're talking about Dibbling, and you had Wilcox work with him at Saints, and now we're talking about someone like Delap, he worked with him at City. Anything like that can make the difference, so will it? I mean, end of the day, players, there's not much heart in football. It's about business heads and it's about the money. So am I saying that a friendship that goes back a few years is going to make a difference? Probably not, but any advantage you can get in these deals is going to help. So it's only a plus.
Yeah, it's a shame, innit? Because everyone thought, well, I don't know, everyone, I certainly did, thought, oh well, Amorim knows Gyökeres, we'll get him. Yeah. And then it's like, that doesn't look like it's happening.
Ollie and Haaland.
Yeah, dumb.
No, that's so even depressing. Ollie thought that was a done deal. Yeah. Even he, I remember him going out, at the time he was at Salzburg, wasn't he? Yeah. Before going to Dortmund. So he'd worked them at Mould, hadn't he? Is that right?
Yeah. He's apparently Ollie didn't try and get us a signing before he'd even come back.
I think he attempted twice.
I remember when he flew out to Salzburg to go and speak to him, and he came back and he was really confident. And the next thing, he's gone to Dortmund.
Well, thankfully, Ireland didn't end up doing out, but it could have been a lot worse.
Exactly.
We didn't miss anything there.
No.
Do you know
what has he achieved?
It was an interesting point that was made before that you mentioned about how the mindset of the United fan base hasn't really adjusted to the financial situation United find themselves in, and how United basically are seen in the market now, where we barely trying to challenge for Champions League football. We might for Europa League. We're basically a sinking ship. It doesn't seem like we are going anywhere fast. But still, whenever you get these transfer links to the likes of Liam Delap and these market opportunities and younger sending players, it's just
snobbery.
Get Osimhen, get Gyökeres, get basically just listing off like world class players like it's literally FIFA, like it's FIFA 25. And if it's not one of those, they're saying, nah, he's upset. They're upset about it, and there is that snobbery still. And I'm thinking, they'll say, I want this player, that player, that player. And then you look at it and you think, that's about 250 million
Well,
pound worth of players.
People weren't listening when Ratcliffe said we could have gone bust by Christmas. I don't believe that necessarily, don't get me wrong, but it's put in those terms. Fans have to understand time to change. It isn't just us coming down. It's teams. It's your Brightons, your Bournemouths, your kind of Fulhams, your Palaces. All these teams that in the past we looked down on. They've now got more money. They've now got a better structure. I mean, Brighton got a fantastic structure, and players want to buy into that too. Forest, of course, So, it's we aren't the big sell that we once were. I think times have changed, and we haven't got the money, and we're not very good.
Other than that, everything's mint.
And we're acting like we're not the only ones that are going to be in for these players as well.
I get your point. Yeah. It's sometimes though, and like I look at whenever we played against Ipswich, he's been an handful, and you think there's a player there, but there's part of me that does worry because I think, are we going to get bitten the way we did with Hojlund? I know it's different because he's played in the Premier League, but it's like, do we need a player who's consistently scored over the last 3 or 4 years rather than someone who's up and coming because of what's happened with Hojlund and to a lesser degree Xerxes? That's my only concern around the Delap signing.
Let's say then Osimhen, if he was so good and such a fantastic servant for the club, why is he on loan at the moment?
I mean, you're right. I think though that is the whole Napoli-Osimhen thing. I found really bizarre, like the way he fell out with him, the social media posts that by his own club about him that were like,
is that what you want? So
I mean, I don't know. It is a weird one with him.
That brings up a player that I actually want to not as a stitch up, but just a player to ask you about, because who's seen as a bit of a why is his value so low? United fans are like, oh, that's a potential fancy toy that I could get, and it's the Rayan Cherki. Where he's like Leon are potentially open to selling him for what is it like around a 20 million mark, and everyone sees him do all these flicks and tricks, and he's doing well for Leon, but everyone's a bit sceptical of why.
I think your colleague Nathan Salt spoke about him on here a few weeks ago, and I think with him there's a question about whether he'd fit into the system in terms of his work rate for Amorim. I don't know.
Bad entourage.
I barely watched it. I just remember I think that's what Nathan Salt was talking about. But when we play Leon, if he does anything, if he takes a good throw in, then you will have all the United fan base mobilising to go in. We need to sign him immediately.
And the people that love like Gyökeres, you forget. He was at Coventry, wasn't he? And didn't set the world on fire there. I'm not saying therefore he can't be. As mentioned before, players move on, players improve. So it doesn't mean that he can't become a better player, but don't forget, that he has played in England and he wasn't doing great.
That's what McCullough always says. McCullough's always got a thing about Gyökeres, hasn't he? Like, he's at Coventry. He always exaggerates. Like, he's at Coventry last season. He wasn't. But
it's very interesting because I think it was like whilst he was at Coventry, we had Dre working upstairs, and he came to me every day and he was like, "There's this striker in the Championship for Coventry, and he's doing decently at the moment. I think United should look into signing him." And we were like, "Nah, Coventry." I kept scoffing at it, and then he eventually agreed to do the video. And then Steve looked into him, etc. And he thought, Steve was like, "Yeah, he looks pretty good." And then did the video on him. And then it's funny because like 3 years later now, he's like this big hot prospect, and it was all because of Dre. It's all because of Dre.
You look like a genius.
Brought to his attention, but. As for the Championship, though, I think the Championship's become a bit of a league where there are actually some really good potential players in it. I think Crystal Palace shopping the Championship really well, don't they?
Just some great players there. So.
I mean,
Dougie Freedman.
I know it's different. Yeah. Ahmad did well when he went to Sunderland, didn't he? In the Championship. You know what I mean? I know we already had him, so it was just bringing him back. But that was a good season for him to have there in that league, get some goals, do well. And then come back, and obviously it took him a while to get into the first team, but he did. He certainly this season done really well before his injury. I just wanted to ask you quickly about. This sounds like a mad headline, but it's Anthony Fever sort of gripping Seville. Sorry, like Anthony's just smashing it up. And I saw the picture of him. Was it on Adrian's shoulders with his flag, and there's this crowdfunding to get him, and Isco going, we need to get Anthony. I mean, you've written about it. I mean, what's going on here with Anthony?
What I would say, wait on. What I would say that you mentioned before, my colleague Nathan Salt. Nathan was out in Seville at the weekend. So if you look at the column, there are names on it, myself, Nathan, and also our colleague Liam Morgan, who do great work for us. So that one is a question for Nathan. He was out there.
Right, okay.
I wasn't there. So I edit the column and I write some of the column, others write other bits of it, and that was one from Nathan on his trip to Seville. So
what have you made of it all, of that, the Anthony fever, we can call it that, because we had Nathan on here last week talking to him.
Yeah.
We've seen obviously the numbers that Anthony's been put up, the fact has he been player of the match about 3 times as well. I don't know if it's some sort of sponsored thing, but he has been getting player of the match. The fans love him. Do you think he could fetch a bit of money this summer, or what do you reckon? Because there was reports, weren't there, that Sevilla looking at Real Betis looking at another loan move for him, or an extended loan move.
They can't. I mean, probably talking about 25 for him now. And then you're knocking off his wages as well. There could be a payoff there. So whichever way you kind of figure it, it's not great. It's a big come down on £86 million that we went and paid for him. I think, he probably needs to go. I think he seems happy there. If we can do a deal, then great. But I think we saw with the game against Sociedad, Betis aren't brilliant. He probably found his level there. Scored some goals, got some assists, got a silly red card. So I think if a deal can be done with them or somebody else to move him on, then 'cause it isn't just the fee, it's also wages as well. So getting him off the wage bill would definitely help. But I think he had his time, and if we can get a deal done, then it's best for him and best for the club.
I'm hoping these clubs like Real Betis and even Aston Villa, and like how they're kind of being extremely like jovial about the performances of these loan players from United, almost to push it in United fans' faces as well a little bit.
Yeah,
I hope they keep that same energy when the summer comes around.
Well, this is what Dortmund did last season, didn't
when it's time to pay.
We had all this from Dortmund. He's home, he's amazing.
When it's
all
time to
these
pay.
Posts like how great Jadon Sancho is, and they're loving him, and got into the Champions League final. Then it's like, all right, do you want to buy him? No.
Exactly. That's what I mean. I hope they pay in it, and I hope they do pay.
I just want to ask you one final thing, Chris. You've spoken about like someone like Delap, a player that is Premier League proven this season, but still a young player. You spoke about Sir Jim Ratcliffe there. He's mentioned about the lack of money. Where do you think United are now, long term? Do you think United can get back? It's obviously, the way we're looking at it is with younger players coming in. We don't have the money that we have in the past. Do you think there is a pathway with Amrim and with Ineos and what's happening for United to get back to sort of challenging at the top?
Oh, 100%. 100%. There's no doubt Man United will be a top team again and a top club again. The size of the club, the size of the fan base, locally, globally, the money coming in, I think they still bring in more revenue than any other club in the world. It's just unfortunately the way that we're structured in debt and what's going out the other way. Gets rid of all of that, and that needs sorting. But there's not a doubt in my mind that Manchester United will be a top club again, and they will rule again. And how long it'll take? Who knows? It took Liverpool 30 years. We're 12 years in right now. No nearer at the moment. But I cannot believe that with the resources, the potential, the history. History doesn't count for anything. But let's just with what we have and what we will be again. There's no question in my mind that Manchester United will be right up there, if not at the very, very top.
Yeah,
just needs an igniter in it. There needs something.
You look when Klopp went back, went into Liverpool. They were coming off. Was it post Rodgers?
Yeah, it was Rodgers.
Hodgson and Rodgers.
It was Rodgers when they had that good season under Brendan Rodgers, didn't they? Where they almost won the title, and then the following season. Sorry.
Shame that, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was devastated for him. Paul, Steven Gerrard. And then the next season obviously was, and then the start of the following season, I think one of his last games under Rodgers was the Martial debut on it at Old Trafford. So the wheels come off, and Klopp goes in there, and even in initially there was a few doubters, but you're right, you saw what he did there. It's a good example that with Liverpool, because I think that was a very similar situation in the respect that they'd gone all these years without title, they'd spent a lot of money that hadn't worked out, they'd been through so many different styles and different managers, and then they just got not just the manager but the setup.
I was going to say, I think they sorted the boardroom for that, and then that's what kind of...
Yeah, because there were Hicks and Delap, weren't there, before that? That was a mess, and then in came Fenway, FSG came in and sorted it out. But, it doesn't take as much. People talk about how many transfer windows. Well, a lot if you don't spend well. But not many if you do spend well. It's simple as that. That you can't always quantify these things in terms of how many years, how many transfer windows. If you get the right person in, and the right people in, and the right setup and the right culture, in a football club, it actually isn't that hard, and things can turn around very, very quickly.
Very, very quickly. Yeah, we'll end it there on a positive. That's what I like to say. It can turn around very, very quickly. You heard it here first. Chris, always a pleasure. What are you working on at the minute? You waiting for the press conferences? When is the press conference?
Yeah, Derby press conference on Friday, isn't it? And we go again Sunday. Should be actually, it's probably the least kind of least intense derby that's been for a while.
I think that's not a bad shout, isn't it?
There's not much at stake, is there?
City aren't going for the title; they're absolute losers, and we're not either. So
feels like that's what I mean. It doesn't feel like there's much jeopardy on the game at all.
No, just pride, bragging rights. Yeah, you're right. It's all about Leon. But
Leon now, sadly, in terms of
that's the season, isn't it?
But that's that. I mean, it's a chance to win a trophy, chance to end on a high. And of course, a chance to get back into the Champions League. There you go.
Go and check out Chris's work. There's a link in the description. Keep up the good stuff, Chris. Ronnie, always a pleasure. That's been Chris Wheeler from Daily Mail. That's been Ronaldo Brown. I've been Jay Moy. This has been Off the Bar. Don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.